This video tracks the accelerating changes over history. It will demonstrate how significant steps in human evolution have suddenly come into existence at precise times, forming a pattern of profound coincidences which suggests divine guidance. This information is powerfully embedded in the construction of the ancient Mayan long count calendar. Today, the speed of events are dizzying and going ever faster, causing threats to established social institutions and cannot continue the same way. Part 2 of this video will explore the impact and alternatives for the future of humanity. Everyone is sensing that time is getting shorter. But is it time that is really speeding up? Here is an analogy that may help explain the situation. Imagine a ball rolling across a flat surface. The distance traveled each second would be constant, apart from the effect of friction. This is the linear approach that is similar to how we perceive life. However, if a ball was dropped from the top of a tall building, in the first second it would travel 32 feet. But in the next second it would travel 64 feet because of the accelerating force of gravity. It would continue to go faster and faster, exponentially. Now, if you were a microbe on this ball, rather than concluding that time was speeding up, you would realize that it is the distance traveled that is increasing each second. In a similar way, evolution is also accelerating. Time is not speeding up, but the number of events that are occurring each year is increasing. It took 2 billion years from the origin of life to the creation of cells, and just 14 years from the PC to the World Wide Web. Let's take a look at the facts through a different lens, through the lens of the evolution of consciousness. The Mayan calendar is an alternative with striking similarities to the scientific version of evolution, and it provides not only a context, but a structure supported by history, and a history which suggests a meaning of divine importance. Now, everybody's heard of the Mayan calendar and that it comes to an abrupt end in 2012. Interpretations vary anywhere from 2012 is the end of the world to 2012 is the beginning of the Age of Enlightenment. The Mayan civilization lasted well over 1,000 years until being conquered by Hernandez Cortes around 1520. And to give you an idea of the scale of their civilization, around 500 AD, when London was just a small village, at least 2 Mayan cities had populations of over 100,000 people each and had developed the most advanced mathematics and astronomy of their day. Unlike Egyptian history, the history of the Maya is not at all well known, as most of the artifacts were destroyed by the invaders. Interest in the Mayan civilization picked up in the most unusual way. During World War II, when the Russian army was storming Berlin, the Berlin Library went up in flames. Yuri Nozorov, a young student from Leningrad, ran in and rescued just one book. It turned out to be a facsimile of the only 3 surviving Mayan codices known at the time. Back in Russia, Yuri spent 7 years breaking the Mayan code which told their history, but it was not until 1994 the Swedish biologist Dr. Carl Johan Kalman became inspired and undertook to devote his career to solve the mystery of the long count calendar and to translate its meaning into modern terms. It's this inspiring viewpoint that I'll be walking us through now, with a structure that demonstrates historical acceleration with incredible precision. The Mayan long count is not a calendar of time, but a schedule of events over time, leading to the evolution of consciousness. And of course, like any schedule, it has a start date and an end date. Here's the interesting part. It's not just one single schedule, but it is made up of 9 overlapping schedules or cycles, each of which is shorter than the one below, and they all end up on the same date. Why? The Maya believed that it takes 9 evolutionary cycles from the beginning of the universe to enlightened consciousness. This core belief is represented in the 9 steps of every Mayan pyramid. In addition, there are 3 special characteristics of the calendar which are the root of its power and prophecy. First, the Mayan mathematicians recognized that the speed of events accelerated with time, just as the ball accelerates when dropped from a tall building. Therefore, the cycles are not just shorter, each one is precisely 20 times shorter than the cycle below. For example, if cycle 2 were drawn to scale, it would be 1/20th of cycle 1. Similarly, this compression would apply to all the other cycles and they would visually collapse into a single vertical row. So for visual clarity, the expanded scale would be used for later explanations. Second, it is noted that a significant evolutionary event emerges at the beginning of each cycle, and this will be explained as we go into the detail of each of the cycles. The third characteristic, that each of the 9 cycles is divided into 13 energy periods, 7 positive and 6 negative. Dramatic changes emerged during the positive periods and became established during the 6 negative periods. Perhaps this gives new meaning to the biblical creation story in Genesis of 7 days and 6 nights. Of course, because the next cycle is 20 times shorter, the changes are 20 times faster, and 20 times faster again for each cycle after that. So let's start at the beginning. The universe came into existence as a huge explosion of energy, commonly known as the Big Bang. The Mayans identified this event as the start of the first cycle of the calendar, and they show it as happening 16.4 billion years ago. How the heck the Mayan mathematicians knew this is a puzzlement. It's pretty close to the latest estimate of modern science of 15 billion years ago. As for the actual end date, no one really knows, and there are many predictions that it's around 2012. However, Dr. Kalaman's research is that the schedule ends on the 28th of October 2011, and his is the one I shall be using. So let's take a look at the acceleration that occurred during that first cycle. Very shortly after the Big Bang, atoms formed in a gaseous fog. As the gas expands, it breaks into clouds, which expand and cool, forming the Milky Way. Then supernovas form the beginning of the universe as we know it, and the acceleration continues, until our solar system appeared around 4.7 billion years ago. And on Earth, the essential elements of life, which then formed the first cells, leading to the growth of vegetation around the planet. Until 821 million years BC, and some 16 billion years had passed before the start of cycle 2. Since it is only 1/20th of the size, we've expanded the view for full visibility. Of course, it now represents only 821 million years, and it was around this time that the first simple animal life suddenly sprang into existence. And although it was just a sponge, it represented an unprecedented breakthrough into incredible complexity. Cycle 3, being 1/20th of cycle 2, starts at 41 million years BC. By remarkable coincidence, this is the same time that the monkey sprang into existence. The timescales are getting much shorter now, with cycle 4 starting at 2 million years BC. This is around the time that the first humanoid appeared. However, it took another 70 million years for the modern Homo sapiens to evolve. Cycle 5 started at 1,500,000 years BC, coinciding with the emergence of the first languages. Cycle 6 starts at 3,115 years BC, which is also the time that the first writing appeared. The duration has now shrunken down from millions of years to 5,000 years, and we're now in the history where the dates can be more precise. So I've expanded the scale further to give more visibility. Earlier I mentioned the 13 energy periods of 7 positive and 6 negative, in which important events occurred during the positive period. In this case, each energy period is a leisurely 395 years. Here are a few examples of important events. Currency was invented around 2000 BC. The Buddha was born in 500 BC. And of course the birth of Jesus was the beginning of our Gregorian calendar. He was followed by the birth of Muhammad around 570 AD. Then moving rapidly along to 1450 AD, the invention of the printing press by Gutenberg and his printing of the Bible revolutionized communications. Cycle 7 starts 1755 AD, and this was also coincident with the invention of the steam engine by James Watt in the mid-1700s. This was the event that triggered the Industrial Revolution, and the length of the energy periods in which change occurs now reduces to 20 years. The steam locomotive was invented by George Stephenson in 1814. Samuel Morse invented the telegraph in 1837, and Carl Benz introduced the automobile in 1885. In 1920, Westinghouse introduced radio programs. Emails went online in 1971, and the World Wide Web was launched in 1990. Now things are really speeding up. Cycle 8 begins 5th of January 1999, and that was the start of the IT revolution, which continues today. The number of events occurring in this cycle was vast, as each energy period of creation is only 12 months. In 2001, the iPhone, then the iPod, the DVD, the digital camera, an oxygen-powered plane, and in 2011, the ubiquitous iPad. And so we come to March 9, 2011, the start of the last cycle, Cycle 9. This cycle has started with momentous events in the Arab world and the Middle East, and I've labelled it the Freedom Revolution. Hang on to your hats, folks. This is a period of unprecedented rate of change, every 18 days. It will be a roller coaster in all areas, societal, natural, financial and political. Now here are just a few of the headlines about countries in the Middle East in March. Tunisia, Egypt, Jordan, Bahrain, Yemen, Syria. 3 important conclusions can be drawn from the Mayan long count. Firstly, the 9 cycles of the schedule accurately demonstrate the acceleration of events from ancient history up to the present day. Secondly, the probability of 9 significant steps in human evolution aligning with the start dates of the 9 cycles is way beyond coincidence, suggesting a divine purpose. Thirdly, the rate of evolution in Cycle 1 is almost static, as it takes 1 billion years for the change to occur. However, by Cycle 9, the frequency has increased to the point where it takes just 18 days for major change to occur, which easily accounts for the turmoil of today. But what comes after the end of the schedule? Will society descend into chaos, as some predict, or will we evolve into a society of compassion and caring? Part 2 of this video explores the stress impact of the speed up on the human psyche and how heartfelt intuition can open us to the guidance of the soul.